Welcome to Teachers Talk Money, where a millennial high school teacher and a Gen X elementary teacher get together to talk all things money.
From salary scales to saving, investing, and self-care, we're here to help teachers master their money. I'm Christy.
And I'm Rachel, and we're so glad you're here.
Hey, Rachel, how's it going? How was your week?
Hey, Christy. I had a pretty normal week, but I did want to share a money win with you in the audience today, and that's that this month was a 3-paycheck month for me, which if you get paid bi-weekly, I know some teachers get paid monthly, but if you get paid bi-weekly, we have 1 month in the year or 2 months if you're a 12-month employee where you get a third paycheck. And this is beautiful because when you're used to budgeting monthly and getting 2 paychecks a month, you suddenly have a ton of income to work within your budget. So I'm getting my third paycheck this month, and I also got a stimulus check this month, and most of that money went straight to my Roth IRA, my individual retirement account, and I'm just really stoked to start seeing some returns on the investment.
Man, that is some serious calendar magic.
Yes.
That's exciting.
I am very excited about it. How was your week, Christy?
Well, I have yet to be paid this month, and I have yet to receive my stimulus check. So I am on the opposite end of the calendar magic. However, I do have lovely neighbors, and they brought me the most beautiful eggs from their chickens. So we had a dozen It's so yummy. We eat eggs every morning. And so it was so sweet of them. I just love being a good neighbor and sharing in my little hood over here. So yes, I got eggs and it was awesome.
That is beautiful.
It's the little things.
So in today's episode, we're talking about all the financial opportunities specific to teachers, because last episode we talked about all of the difficulties and the structural obstacles. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm excited about this episode because this is where we get to start making those moves on that playing field. It's like, okay, now we know what we're working with. Let's get started. Yes. So the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of teachers and a lot of the public, because they roll their eyes and say, well, you get summers off. And we say, yes, but if you add up the hours that we work during the school work year, we work more than the average 40-hour-a-week employee. Thank you. However, we do have summers where we are not required to be in the classroom. And so that offers a ton of time, potentially, for us to advance ourselves financially and professionally. So the first thing that I think every teacher should be paying attention to is increasing their salary. We talked last time about that pay scale. You know the path you can use to increase your earnings. And I like to think about this as building your earnings into your day job. If you earn more credits, or if you earn your master's degree, or all of those steps on that salary scale, you are then done putting the time and energy into that increase in your pay. It stays with you. Those earnings are then built into your day job. So if you think about, okay, I could tutor for 5 hours a week and make X amount of dollars, that's awesome. Or I could go to school for 5 hours a week and make X amount of dollars. That's then going to continue for the rest of my career. I think that's where teachers should be putting their energy first, is to build into those earnings into their paychecks.
Yeah. A piece of advice I received a long time ago and I often give out now is, because I feel like side hustles are so emphasized for teachers just because we tend to have lower salaries. And side hustling is awesome, and we're going to talk about that in a bit too. But I believe that really we should make furthering our education essentially our side hustle. Like, that's what we should see as what we should be hustling towards. Because like you said, it then is passive, right? You front load the work, and then you just see the increase in salary and the returns on that for all of your years teaching to come. 100%.
Yes, passive. That's the word I was looking for. Once it's been earned, it's there forever.
Definitely. And something else that I love about summers, especially if you already have advanced your salary more, and you are interested in maybe getting into a little bit of different types of work, is that you have 2 months to pursue another passion if you want to do that. For me, I use my summers to work on Teachers Talk Money stuff. And I absolutely love getting to spend time doing that. That's not as affected by the fact that normally I'm mostly focused and busy with my teaching stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the world is your oyster in those 2 months. You can use it to develop any passion you're interested in. I really want to start learning another language. That's something on my list. I took tons of Spanish in school and I really miss it. So maybe this summer.
Yeah. And just traveling, right? We have so much uninterrupted time over the summer to travel. And that is a passion I know of both of ours, and I'm sure of many other people, which kind of brings me into our last point about summertime. And that is that it's really a mini retirement opportunity. And mini retirement is something talked about often in the FIRE or financial independence retire early community, which I'm sure is something we're going to cover in future episodes. But essentially, a lot of people think of the movement as, you're retiring at 45 years old and you're never doing traditional work again. But what a lot of people actually do is just build up really nice cash reserves in order to decide, okay, I'm going to take a year-long sabbatical and travel with my family or something like that. And teachers sort of have that built in. We have 2 months where we don't necessarily have to have professional obligations. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And that's really the way that since my first year teaching, when I worked over the summer after that, I've sort of used my summers as mini retirements, like I said, to work on my other passions outside of my traditional career.
Yeah. So summer times can be a time where we can increase our financial opportunities. And it can also be a time where we're just taking a step back and relaxing and taking some self-care time and some passion project time, knowing that I'm a 12-month employee. So I do get a paycheck at the beginning of the summer. That's a 3-month paycheck. And if you're a 10-month employee, you can budget to where you are still giving yourself money to work with over that summertime. So you've got a lot of options there. Thinking about our next topic is related side hustles.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different types of these for teachers because we have some that are built into our school buildings, which I'll definitely touch on here. One of the most common ones would be coaching, right? You get a stipend if you're a coach at your school. Usually that's only for middle or high schools, but that's something I do and I absolutely love it. I will say you don't get paid a fair wage for how much time you spend on it, especially like if you add it up, at least in my district, it's pretty sad. But it is still super fun. I still make a little bit more money with a stipend, and I've been able to build much deeper relationships with students and feel more a part of my school community. So if that's something you're interested in and you're okay with maybe not getting a fair wage for that work, then I highly recommend coaching. And another sort of, I don't really see this one as a side hustle so much, but I'm the sponsor for my school newspaper. And the beautiful thing about this is we get a lot of the work for the newspaper done during journalism class, which is one of my classes in my class load. And it took the place of one of my English sections. So essentially, I mean, I have a second planning, but I mean, so does every other teacher I know. And we get a lot of the work done there, and I still get a stipend for it. I mean, I will say I do have to work outside of class, especially when we're on a deadline, and it's stressful to sort of be creating a publication that comes out frequently and is really like the face of the school in a lot of ways. So you definitely earn the stipend. I don't get to do everything within my school day, but it's really nice because I love teaching the class. I love running the newspaper. I was the editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper, so it's a little bit near and dear to my heart. And it's another way for me to increase my income, which was awesome for me, especially as an early educator who's still working on getting her master's.
I like to think of those jobs that you just described, that stipend work, as it's like we have this built-in talent stack as teachers. We have so many skills that can be put to use within our school network that we can use to earn some extra money and grow our enjoyment of our jobs and just really further ourselves financially. So, Rachel, you talked about a couple of really exciting ones that you're a part of. I have done committee work for stipends in the past. I do some union work for stipends. And again, they're small, but it's an extra perk. I mean, I'm already interested in what my union's up to, and I love being a representative for my building. And so the fact that I get a little stipend for that is really nice. What I have done in the past during the summertime when we were in that debt payoff stage was tutoring over the summer. And that was fantastic. All I had to do was send out an email to all of the teachers that I know and say, hey, I'm tutoring this summer. Boom, your schedule is full. Mm-hmm. And I charged $30 an hour. And this was, again, probably 10 years ago at this point. So I'm not sure what the going rate would be. And it probably depends on where people live. But point being, I didn't have to do any sort of building work to jump into tutoring for the summer. I already knew what I was doing. I knew how to assess kids, and it just really fell so beautifully into that summer schedule as a side hustle. And then Teachers Pay Teachers, can we just take a moment? I have so much praise and admiration for the Teachers Pay Teachers creators that are out there.
Yes.
I look at the things that I buy for $3 and I'm like, this would take me 9 years to make in PowerPoint. Thank God for Teachers Pay Teachers. I mean, you guys, it's just astounding the work that is done out there on Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you are tech savvy and creative and into like making things look super nice in a way that I will not be able to ever accomplish, and I will therefore buy your resource from you, that is incredible. I mean, I know Teachers Pay Teachers authors who have quit teaching because now they just make money on Teachers Pay Teachers. And so I think that's really, an avenue you can take to make as little or as much as you are willing and able to put the time into. And teachers like me appreciate you because thank you.
100%. Shout out to all the Teachers Pay Teachers buyers as well. Buyers of things on Teachers Pay Teachers, because girl, work smarter, not harder. That's what I always say.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I totally agree. There's just so many things that we already have the skill set for, or that are even already available through our buildings. And then our next point is that we can get paid more with more certification. That's another sort of benefit that we do get specifically as teachers that you might not see in another career.
Yeah. And I like to think about it as a bonus. My sister gets a bonus every year, and I have national board certification. And my school district now gives me $3,000 a year for that. And if I taught at a Title I school, it would be $4,000 a year for the entire time that my license is good. So there are now 25 states that offer stipends of up to $6,000 a year, which in teacher world, that's a lot. Yeah. And so the way I like to think about it is if I invested my stipend, let's say I'm a nationally certified teacher for 20 years, which I plan on being, I would have earned an extra $46,000 because when I started, I wasn't making the full $3,000. That increased midway through my certification. So let's say I invested that $46,000 at a conservative rate of growth of 6%. It could be worth as much as $220,000 by the time I'm 65. So that's the kind of levers that we want to help teachers see and pull. It's like, in my mind, I mean, Rachel, you said you're going to do it as soon as you're eligible because you have to have taught 3 years, but you can do that. It took me 2 years to get it. Actually, it took me 1 year. You have a 2-year window. And I'm now going to be earning potentially $220,000 from it. I mean, that's huge. And they have changed the way that you get the certification. Now it's more of every year, I think you do something to renew a part of it, whereas I did it all at once and then I had to renew 10 years later all at once. But either way, it's just not a lot of work for the amount of payout you can get from it, depending on what your district and your state offer. My district also offers a stipend for a doctorate degree. That was something our union negotiated really hard for because that's kind of the top of the pay scale. But then people said, hey, I've got a whole other degree. And so that's another thing you might look at in terms of stipends.
100%. And like you said, I'm going to get it as soon as possible. My district only offers $2,000 a year as a stipend, but still entirely worth it. So I'm going to get it starting on day one of my 4th year teaching, which is this coming year. And I highly recommend that everybody else does that too.
Well, I think everybody should investigate it because now, again, I did it 12, 13 years ago, and it was me by myself in my classroom. There was not this massive social media network that there is now and this way of connecting with teachers who were also going through it. I was one of the first 2 teachers in my district to get it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because it was still sort of a new thing. And so newer teachers now have so much more support and so much more of a network that they can use to support them through that, that I just think it can be such a huge financial benefit to us to get that. And then also people think you're awesome if you say, I have national board certification. It's just, I'm like, well, it doesn't necessarily make me that much more awesome. It was a good process, but I also am super excited about how much I get paid for having it.
Oh, yeah. And anything I can put in my email signature, I will. So let's talk about the salary scale. We talked about this a lot in the last episode and the ways that this was sort of an obstacle for us, but there's a flip side of this coin too. So let's talk about what is actually good about the salary scale.
Absolutely. I think we are both a wee bit linear and type A. And so a salary scale is just a beautiful thing in a lot of ways. I can look at that and say, hey, next year I'm going to be making this. And then the year after that. And if I get these credits, there's no mystery to it. I mean, I hate an unknown. And the fact that I can Google my salary schedule and look at it makes me very excited. And it also helps us plan as teachers. We can say, hey, okay, in 5 years, this is where I'm going to be. And then it also, the idea of working in a corporate setting where I don't know what the person next to me is making, even though we're doing the same work and they could be making another $10,000 more than me. And then the wage gap that can go along with that, the salary scale eliminates all of that. And I think it really gives teachers this permission. It doesn't set us up to be competitive with each other for money. And that breaks down so many barriers for us to support each other in our job, because there is no sort of like, well, I've got to out teach Rachel so I can make more than her, you know? And again, we talked about that as an obstacle, but I think it's also an opportunity because it allows us to have such a collaborative environment because we don't have to compete with each other for more money.
That is so true. And I didn't even think about that. And I have to just agree with you, Christy. I know last episode I shared all my personal beef with the salary scale, which is sort of where I've come to as somebody who is now comfortable with negotiation and who is now willing to assert my worth as an employee. But when I started, I loved the salary scale because I, just like you, Christy, I'm like, just tell me the path and I'll take it. Like, that's what I needed. I was afraid of negotiation, nervous about it. I hadn't been trained in it, just like many, many women, teacher or not. And so for me, I was like, okay, great. I don't have to, like you said, worry as much about the wage gap. I will just follow these steps and I have a guaranteed amount at least, right? And that was so valuable to me to just know what my salary was going to be going in. And so as much as I do at this point have personal beef with it, I really, really liked it in the beginning, and I do still see how it is valuable. Okay, so let's move on to the benefits of pensions. We had a lot to say in the last episode about how they can be an obstacle, especially if you're someone like me who is going to leave teaching probably before traditional retirement age or before those years of service. But if you do meet these terms for years of service and age, or even get close to that, or really even just have an understanding of what your pension is going to give to you, it can be a really great thing too.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk a little bit about my plans here because I am eligible to retire at 25 years of service. And that's exciting because I'm at 21. So far for my career, I've been contributing 8% of my income to my pension each year. And once I retire, that will translate into about 50% of my take-home pay for life. And I have David as a beneficiary. So if anything were to happen to me, he would get it. And that is such a nice guarantee. I'm close enough. I know it's going to be there. Teachers are retiring around me that are using that as a major factor in their financial security for their retirement. So it's something that I'm really excited about. While 50% of my income is not all of my income, right? It is definitely going to be a big factor in our financial plans for our retirement. And also, if you think about people that have been teaching 25, 30 plus years, most likely their houses are paid off or close to it. Most likely their children have grown and are at least in college. And so those bigger financial hurdles that we're facing younger in our careers, earlier in our careers, aren't there. And so we can afford to live on a little less in retirement if we want to. or we can start saving in other ways to prop up that pension with other sources of income. So I think it can be a really good benefit. And again, we definitely want you to know what your options are in your state. But for those of us that are planning on teaching for our full career, to qualify for those benefits, it can definitely help out.
Yeah. And the other piece of this that is really great for some employees is that a lot of times your employers will match the contributions to your pension. In my case, I think the percentage changes every year based on some factors. So yeah, I don't actually know what it is this year, but they'll match some percentage of it for us, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I was just logged in the other day and checking. Actually, I think I did a Google search and it brought me to my teacher's retirement page. And I realized my employer is putting in 3% more than I do. So I'm putting in 8%, they're putting in 11%. And I don't know of any corporate situations where that exists. I think corporations often match their employee 401k contributions to a point, but I don't know that I've ever heard of them putting in more than their employees, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool. I always saw it as sort of like an obstacle that teachers don't often have any sort of 403b matching program. But to hear that they're doing that, at least in some form, in some districts with the pension, makes me feel a little bit more encouraged.
Yeah. So again, like take a look at what your state offers and even your district, right? Because Rachel, what did you just find out?
Well, great question, Christy. I knew that I had a supplementary pension because I saw it come out of my paycheck. So I saw, on my deductions on my pay stub, it would say this much is going to your base pension and this other small amount is going to a supplementary pension. And so I was aware that that existed, but I thought it was all going to the same website where I would check to see the value of my state pension. And so I thought that that was all included there. And that was wrong. It was a supplementary pension through my district that used an entirely different website to host it. It's not a lot. I've been contributing like $12 per paycheck or something like that. But I have about $500 in the supplementary pension that I didn't know I had. So it was kind of a fun surprise, but also frustrating that there was yet another thing that just nobody told me about. I had to do so much digging on my own to be able to figure out how to access this random website to see my money.
Yeah, totally remarkable and awesome that you found that. And thank you for sharing, because who knows how many other people out there have money stashed away for them that they don't even know about.
Yeah, the thing about blogging about personal finance and having an Instagram and the YouTube channel and now this podcast is that you have to be so vulnerable because there are still so many things that I'm learning and finding out, even about my personal situation. Yes. And so, yeah, just a little hint of vulnerability there.
Right there with you.
So let's talk about our employer-sponsored plans, which are known as the 403Bs or the 457Bs. These are basically the equivalent of a 401k, but they're for public sector employees. So teachers and I guess government employees.
Any state employees. We have our pensions most likely, and then we have the option of a 403B or 457 plan. And these also vary widely from state to state and even district to district. Every state has the option of offering their teachers a 457. That's the newer iteration of these accounts, but not all districts have opted into them. So most likely, teachers out there, you have the option of having money taken out of your paycheck pre-tax to go into a 403B retirement account. It acts, like Rachel said, very similar to a 401k. There's a retirement age. There's a limit of the money you can put in. It's about $19,500 this year. And a 457 can be the same thing. So you can have money taken out of your paycheck pre-tax and put into a 457 account. The tricky thing about these is that your options are limited by your district in terms of who you can use to invest that money and what investment options you have, what investment vehicles you have. So I mentioned in another episode that I'm on a district committee right now to improve the options that we have for teachers to use in their 403Bs and 457s. The people that have traditionally administered the 403B plans have been sort of that sketchy, I'll give you a free lunch if you sit and listen to my spiel thing that just, turns teachers off. And for good reason, because oftentimes they're investment products are very expensive. The fees are very high, and it's really better for teachers just to start with an IRA. But if you are interested and you have the funds to start contributing to a 457 or 403B, it is an option that we have that, again, not many people know about. This was part of what was in my fantastic notes from 20 years ago that I just discovered and went, oh, I should be doing this. And so it's been a few years now, a couple of years that I've had a 457. And Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit about what the cool thing is about a 457 as opposed to a 403B?
Yeah, and we'll get way further into all the details of this. And if you're totally lost and confused right now with what we're talking about, that is completely okay. We're going to actually really break down all your different investment options in a future episode this season. But I do want to just talk about how cool of an opportunity the 457 is if you have a 457 that isn't a sketchy product and has useful funds within it and those kind of things. So it's really cool because you can withdraw the amount that you have there as soon as you leave your district. So if you want to access that money earlier because you were investing for something other than retirement, or you'd like to retire early, like in my case, or do a mini retirement, you can access the money penalty free. You can also access money from your 403B, but there is a hefty penalty for doing so before traditional retirement age. Yeah, so the 457 is a great choice for somebody that wants a little bit more flexibility.
And also there are districts that do match 403B funds for teachers. So that is worth investigating as well, because you just don't want to leave money on the table if you could be getting a match from your district in your 403B or 457.
Totally. And our next point, our next opportunity that we have as teachers is that we have all of the individual retirement accounts that are open to the general public. I prefer a Roth IRA for like longer term investing just because of the way it is structured tax-wise. And some of us even have access to HSAs or health savings accounts depending on your healthcare plan. And these are super, super, super tax advantaged investment plans, even though they sound like just sort of something for healthcare. They're actually an investment vehicle that are triple tax advantaged.
So we're going to be spending time in future episodes talking in detail about IRAs and HSAs, but just know that being teachers doesn't exclude us from participating in those things the way it would from participating in a 401k, for example. So it's great that we have those options.
Exactly. And I will say not everybody has them. I don't have access to an HSA through my district, but if you do, that is so fantastic, and you should look into taking advantage of that.
Definitely. Next point is job security, which again, I'll say I'm a control freak. All right, there it is.
The truth comes out.
Yeah. I don't like, who does, right? Is there anyone who likes unknown things and insecurity? There must be, but it's not me. I love knowing that I'm signing that contract, and as long as I'm doing a good job, my job is secure. It's unlikely that anyone's going to walk into my classroom and say, hey, tomorrow's your last day, or you have 2 weeks left. And I absolutely know that that happens to people all the time in other professions. Or if you're self-employed, like my husband is self-employed, he has to keep thinking about where he's going to continue to get his clients and, building that public image and maintaining the flow. And we don't have to do that. We can just go to work every day and focus on our jobs. So I love not having to worry about that.
That's so true. And I have to say, I'm not tenured yet. I don't get tenured until the first day of my 4th year teaching, which is annoying because I thought it was just during my 3rd year. But it's the first day of my 4th year teaching, which is this coming school year. And even in my position where technically they really could replace me without, facing sort of any legal ramifications of that, I don't feel insecure in my job at all. I'm going to knock on wood, but because there is such a shortage of teachers, and because I know that I do a good job and my students like me and they're learning and everything, I don't have any concerns about that. And I still speak very freely about the things that are important to me when it comes to staff meetings or department or PLC meetings. I know a lot of people in other jobs feel like they have to hold their tongues with those things. And I don't at all feel that way with my job. And I haven't gotten tenured yet even. So, and then once I do become tenured, that is like a whole other layer of security that I'm excited to have.
Definitely. So what happened when COVID hit is I thought to myself, gosh, I was teaching during 9/11, and that was a national tragedy that affected a lot of jobs and definitely paused a lot in the economy and obviously so much more. And I didn't have to worry about losing my job during that time. And then 2008 hit and the economic crash with the housing market. And again, I mean, that had ripple effects that went out to just about every single corner of our economy. And I again got to think, gosh, oh, thank goodness my job is secure. And then with COVID hitting, obviously, it's almost as, I mean, is it as bad as 2008 or worse? I mean, it's awful. And so many people are feeling the economic effects of that. And again, I've been able to say, oh my gosh, it's thank goodness I'm a teacher and I don't have to worry about losing my job. Obviously, we don't want to plan, national emergencies into our job planning. Hopefully they don't keep happening. But the fact is that they do, and that unexpected does pop up from time to time. I mean, that's 3 times in my career when I would have potentially seriously lost my job. And if I had been there since 1995 in the dot-com crash, I mean, that's when tons of people lost their jobs again. So I'm just really grateful to be a teacher in that way. And I appreciate the security that comes with that for my job.
I completely agree. And when COVID hit for me as a non-tenured teacher, I wasn't really shaking in my boots. I think also just I didn't understand totally what the whole impact would be. Mm-hmm. But I felt secure knowing that even if I was forced out of teaching, or even if I ever want to switch careers in the future, I have so many transferable skills. And this is true of just about every teacher. I think teachers think like, well, what am I going to do if I'm not teaching? And I just think that is so untrue. Like, we are project managers, we are public speakers, we are leaders, we have information about whatever our content area or areas include. I mean, especially for me, I was an English major along with a secondary education major, so I can do anything in editing, publishing. I believe in myself as a person, which is a big deal, but all teachers have a huge set of transferable skills that they can take into so many other jobs. And so our jobs are super secure to begin with, but even if something happens, or if we eventually want to transition to a different career, we have so many opportunities to do that too.
That is such a good point. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but I will say that I am nervous when we're both working in Google Docs because I know you're an English teacher, and I'm concerned that I'm going to put a comma in the wrong spot or something along those lines. So,
oh, girl, I do not care.
I bow to your grammar superiority because I teach second graders.
My students say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, Miss Squad, I'm a bad speller," and I'm like, girl, that's what we have spell check for. Like, I don't care. I care about the content of what you're writing. I do not care that you punctuated it perfectly. Like, we can refine those. Those are little things. I care about the big ideas and the fact that you're showing those analytical and critical thinking skills, So don't worry.
Good. Well, that's what I'll tell myself is she's appreciating my ideas. And I would say that I go to work every day. I go to work every day with people who say cutted. Like he cutted me in line. And so I have to really work to not fall into first and second grade grammar. When I'm tired, it definitely comes out.
That is too funny. All right. So our last point, another, I think, opportunity that's so specific to teachers that might be a little bit underrepresented or underrated is that we have each other. We have an incredibly strong, huge support system. Even if you don't have this in your school building, there are so many amazing, supportive, aligned teachers who value the same things you do on social media. And I think that's amazing. And I think that, like we said earlier with the salary scale, we value collaboration over competition. Obviously, there are some teachers who are maybe a little competitive, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, we share ideas, we copy each other, we talk about not wanting to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's a huge financial benefit too, because we're also in this exact same financial system. And so we have so many opportunities to help one another.
Absolutely. I think, that again, the reason I think it's going to be so fun to build this community among teachers is I think about the things that people that I work with have been through that they have shared with their colleagues, and they're intimate, intense experiences, divorce, miscarriage, death, marriage, buying a house, all of these very exciting and tragic things that go on in our lives, we're already sharing with each other because we're like a family. Not with everybody in my building. And I've certainly been, I've had colleagues that I haven't connected with, but having that core community at our workplace, I think is maybe unique to teachers because it's such a giving, caring profession. Like we are obviously showing up ready to care about other people as like step one to doing our jobs well. And so we care. I care so much about the teachers that I work with and teachers I've met online that I've never even met in person. And it just, the support that is out there is so unimaginable. Whereas I know a lot of other jobs you're working by yourself or you're in competition or, you just don't have that collaborative community that can be built around you. And so I think using that to, again, grow our financial knowledge and support each other as we learn these things and implement these skills is a huge benefit that we can take advantage of.
Yeah. And I can say from personal experience that this totally applies to something like finances. So for me, I have experienced so many teachers after they found out that I write about money coming up to me and asking me these questions and building community and getting a little bit of advice from me. And it's so powerful. And that's the game changer, right? That they have somebody in their life that they can talk to. But it's not just the ones in your building. Like you said, I've connected with so many teachers who have accounts about their finances online too. And there's so much out there, even if you don't have a close peer in your school building, but there's so much out there that we can all learn from. And it absolutely bleeds into our finances, even if we think that's something that nobody's talking about.
Very well said, Rachel. I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to end our episode. I feel a lot more encouraged than when we did our last episode about the obstacles.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say tune in next time for our next episode, which will be about crafting a money mindset, really taking a look at our thoughts and beliefs and feelings around money, because those can be sneaky little devils and they can sabotage us. And we want to really be sure that we are building our financial life on a mindset that supports exactly what we want to create. So we're super excited to have you here with us next time. And until then, have an awesome week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Teachers Talk Money.
Subscribe now to make sure you don't miss a future episode.
Leave us a review of this podcast. It helps more teachers find us.
Share it with a teacher friend who can use some of this information.
You can find more money advice from Christy at Financially Fit Teacher on Instagram and Rachel at Teachers Talk Money on Instagram and YouTube.
All opinions are our own, and our awesome theme music is by John Bartman.